Welcome to KTN Prime. I'm Ben Kitile.
I'm Linda Gutu. Thank you for joining us. Maresha Witi is our sign language interpreter tonight.
Let's begin in Parliament, where for the first time the government admitted that police knew about the impending attack on Garissa University but did nothing about it. Interior Cabinet Secretary Joseph Nkaissery told MPs that intelligence on the terror attack was available, but the police ignored it, occasioning the death of 148 Kenyans. KTN's Aaron Ochieng begins our coverage tonight with that startling admission on the Garissa goofs.
Only a week ago, KTN's investigative series, The Lead, unearthed the shocking details of what went on in Garissa days before the terror attack that claimed 148 lives.
Msipigia alisema serikali haijaleta mafuta, serikali haina pesa, na gari haina mafuta. Na hizi siku zingine huwa patrol inaendwa. Sasa tulishanga.
And today, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the country's security was before a committee of the National Assembly and confirmed just as much.
The Security Committee had intelligence about the attack, and they did not act.
Nkaissery told the committee that the officers had been informed of the plot to stage the deadly attack but disregarded the information. He also came clean and admitted that there was lack of coordination of the security officers in responding to the attack.
Is this intelligent report, was it written? Was it signed by the recipient? Because I remember the intelligence officers used to write and they deliver it by hand.
Yes, it was. And it was actionable intelligence, and that's why I interdicted the officer so that investigation can take place.
In the KTN expose, multiple witnesses suggested that even a security roadblock that was normally erected at the entrance of Garissa town had been removed. Nkaissery says the lapses have forced him to interdict the relevant officers pending investigations, and if found guilty, criminal charges will be filed against them. Asked why it took hours to deploy the Recce squad who finally contained the situation, Nkaissery said KDF's special unit had been sent in time but was unable to handle the situation as the gunmen had secured the only 2 entry points to the university's hostel.
But Mr. Chairman, I believe it is inexcusable that the only aircraft available at that time was used by the CS and the IG to fly to Garissa ahead of the Recce squad.
You know, these people are not just ready, waiting to be told move. They are doing other activities, so you have to constitute the team, because Recce is 120 people.
Only yesterday, Nkaissery replaced the Northeastern Regional Coordinator as the fallout over the Garissa attack continues. The confirmation by the Cabinet Secretary that there was information prior to the attack will elicit a lot of debate in the public domain, bearing in mind that there was even a much slower response after the attack. Aaron Ochieng, KTN, Nairobi.
That is the basis of our discussion tonight. You can send in your views on Twitter. Our hashtag is Garissa Goofs. Our big question tonight about the actions on the officers who failed Kenyans adequate.
Of course, were the actions on the officers who failed Kenyans in the Garissa attack adequate? Let us know what you think. You can tweet us at KTN Kenya, at Ben_Kitile, at Linda Gutu. We'll keep sampling some of your views on that during this particular bulletin. Let's take you to the coast, and police have tonight released pictures of men believed to be planning terror attacks in Mombasa over this coming weekend. And the police are now urging the public to help get them before they launch their attacks. These men are believed to be linked to the Al-Shabaab terror group. John Juma now reports from Mombasa. John.
Thank you, Ben and Linda in studio. Among the photos which have been circulated by the police include that of Abubakar Abdul Kadir. Abubakar Abdul Kadir is a brother to one of the 3 ladies being detained by police in Mombasa following court orders after the ladies were arrested in Mandera attempting to cross into Somalia in what police suspect they were to join Al-Shabaab terror group. The second person who is a wanted man is Issa Abdallah Kayuni. Issa Abdallah Kayuni went missing last year, 2014, from his parents' home here in Mombasa. And so far, the parents have published his posters and circulated within Mombasa as a missing person. But police believe that Kayuni traveled into Somalia to join Al-Shabaab terror group in company of Abubakar Abdul Kadir. The other two are brothers who police have identified as Ahmed Said Omar, also known as Dogo, and Hussein Said Omar, also known as Babli. Now, police describe the four as armed and dangerous, and so police appeals to any person with knowledge of their whereabouts to contact the police on the number 020-2199-151 or 0702-432877. According to a senior officer aware of the probe, is that there are fears top Al-Shabaab command has dispatched the four into Kenya to carry out attacks at the coast over this weekend, starting on Labor Day celebrations, that is tomorrow. Now, this comes at a time when war on terror is on the high gear. You remember last weekend, Parliament employee was arrested following intelligence reports which linked him into a plot by Al-Shabaab to attack Parliament buildings. And remember also a series of terror attacks in the past, the most recent being Garissa, and the expectation of the public and Kenyans at large is that there will be that cooperation with the police to ensure that this war is won and that at least peace prevail. Coast in general has been very calm and peaceful, and even with these fears, residents here believe that police will do their best to ensure that peace prevail. Back to you in studio.
John Juma, thank you. Reporting from Mombasa, of course, with the pictures of the men, the men that police have released this evening, asking for the help of the public to identify them before their launch attacks in the country. Police described the four as armed and dangerous: Abdul Kadir, Abubakar Abdul Kadir, Issa Abdallah Kauni, Ahmed Said Omar aka Dogo, and Hussein Said Omar aka Babli. Those with information on the whereabouts of these four men are being asked to contact the police on 020-2199-151 and 0702-432877. Identifying these men could save the lives of so many Kenyans.
Right. Suspended Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Vice Chairperson Irene Keino has resigned. Keino, who quit this afternoon through a letter to the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, cited personal reasons for her resignation. As KTN's Betty Kiara now reports, Keino has for the last few weeks had a hectic time following the fast-changing events at Integrity Center.
It has been an eventful month for Irene Keino, and her tenure at the EACC unceremoniously ended this afternoon. In the letter addressed to President Uhuru Kenyatta, Keino pointed out that it was inappropriate for her to continue serving at the EACC without the full confidence of Kenyans, following questions over her competence and graft allegations. Her decision to leave office came just hours after the tribunal to investigate her was sworn in. The tribunal that was constituted by President Uhuru Kenyatta was set to investigate both her and suspended EACC Chair Mumo Matemu on their conduct and determine whether they should be removed from office. In the letter, Keino says her resignation was intended to protect her family from the intrigues of a judicial process that would cause unimaginable pain. Keino's change of heart came just 4 weeks after she claimed that some anonymous government officials had tried to lure her with an ambassadorial position in exchange for her job at the EACC.
That there's a brazen attempt to force my resignation and disbandment of the commission by a clique, which is a clear subversion of the Constitution. I was also requested to resign and be given a new job as Deputy Ambassador to Brazil which I flatly declined.
The continuing machinations at the EACC come at a time when the Commission has been tasked with what many describe as mega corruption cases. However, with the resignation of Commissioner Professor Jane Onsongo a month ago, the suspension of Chair Mo Matemu, and now the resignation of the Commission's Vice Chair Irene Keino, the legality of the Commission has been put to question. On Tuesday, Attorney General Professor Githu Muigai dismissed the advice of the Commission for the Implementation of the Constitution, which warned that without the EACC commissioners, the Commission could not legally execute the cases before it. Betty Kyalo, KTN.
Thank you for staying with KTN Prime. Let's now cross over to Eldoret to our North Rift reporter, Mercy Kandie, who's standing by with a very interesting story. Mercy, you've had a dramatic day where hunters became hunted.
Indeed, Linda, hunters became hunted. Police who had gone to Moi Ben constituency, to a farm known as Ben Moi, had gone there to evict squatters, but ended up being evicted themselves. One policeman is, as we speak, is in critical condition, as several civilians who were caught up in the eviction that went wrong are nursing serious injuries. Listen in. The hundreds of squatters armed themselves with what they could find. Today was eviction day. One they say was not right, that the matter was still in court, so the eviction could not happen.
Mwenyewe niliingia hapa mwaka 1948. Kama niko na miaka 15. Mpaka wa saa hii niko. Tulitaka shamba tuishi ndani sababu tuko population mingi. Hatuwezi kwenda pale nyingine, ndio hapa kwetu.
Bwenyenye huyu huwa anatumia pesa kutuzuia sisi kulima, kufuga ng'ombe, hata kuku peke yake. Na hata watoto wetu wako kwa shida, hawasomi.
One policeman and several civilians caught up in the chaos were seriously injured at the Ben Moi farm in Uasin Gishu County. 2 vehicles, a Toyota VX and a Canter lorry, were also banned, forcing the police who were to oversee the eviction to back down. The over 800 squatter families and the Kibogi Properties Limited have been battling for the ownership of the 2,098 hectares of land in court, making several appeals since 1991, and were awaiting another court ruling on May 4th, 2015.
This case has been there in the court for like 25 years. We have defended it until we won the whole case. And then the case got concluded. That's how we got an eviction order.
The squatters vowed never to move from the land since it's the only home they know. An over 4-decade battle, the supposed landowners say the squatters want to use unorthodox means to possess the land. Mercy Kandie, KTN, Uasin Gishu County.
Mercy Kandie, thank you for that.
Let's now revisit that story of lead poisoning in Uhuru settlement in Changamwe. Now, all those who found to have high levels of lead in their blood will receive free treatment courtesy of a Mombasa County government.
Mombasa Governor Ali Hassan Joho confirmed that some of the residents whose samples were taken have tested positive for lead poisoning and will immediately be taken to a special ward set aside for them. A KTN expose laid bare the lead poisoning caused by emissions from a factory, causing the tragic death of tens of children in Owino Uhuru.
Joho was speaking to the residents during a visit to the area earlier today.
Irene Akinyi Odhiambo, tutatenga ward fulani pale Portrees Hospital. Saa hii nikitoka hapa nataka niwache madaktari ambaye itachukua watu wote wapelekwe kule waangaliwe. Kuna wale waliangaliwa zamani ambaye wanafaa waanze matibabu, wafanyiwe hayo, na wale wengine wafanyiwe uangalifu kwa mara nyingine, so that we are sure tume deal na hii katika kila mtu ambaye anaishi katika eneo hili.
The government has stepped up efforts to evacuate Kenyans still trapped in the war-stricken Yemen. In Mombasa, one family that made it back is counting blessings even as they think about settling down in Mombasa. It's KTN's Francis Ontoma with an update.
Misukosuko, madreva wanatusimamisha, tuko na watoto wagonjwa, lakini tunashukuru Mungu pia hivyo hivyo tulifika.
Escape from the jaws of death sums up Nazra Ali's lucky trip from Yemen to Kenya. She's among the few who made it back home in a fully paid flight under the aegis of the Foreign Affairs Ministry. About 300 Kenyans are said to have been evacuated from Yemen so far.
Kwa nafanya kazi, niko na nyumba zetu, tulikuwa na nyumba Sanaa, tuko na nyumba Mkalla, full furnished house na kazi zetu, watoto wangu wanasoma. Na hizi vitu sasa vimetuharibia kila kitu. Tumekuja hapa hatujui tuanze maisha vipi kusema la kweli.
The jovial faces of our sons and daughters portraying the sweet home feeling, a feeling that is however punctuated by the painful narration by Nazra.
Tulikuwa sawa, maisha ilikuwa very smoothly. Mambo yalikuwa mazuri, tunalisha watoto wetu vizuri, nyumba zetu, watoto wanasoma skuli, private schools. Kisha ikatokezea hayo matokeo ndio tukaja zetu.
Old Town Mombasa, we meet up with another family. This time it's a cry from relatives who have their kin brought back home from the war-torn country.
Wasiwasi ulioko hiyo nyumba ambao wao walikuwa wanaishi wameshahama iliangushwa ni upande mmoja. Wao hawako Saudi Arabia, wao hawako Yemen, waelekea boda ya Hudaida wapate kuingia Saudi Arabia kisha wa en route into Kenya from Saudi Arabia.
Human rights groups are throwing a challenge to the state.
Wasaidia wakatoka kule watokako mpaka wakaja hapa Kenya. Hiyo ni shukrani kubwa sana. Lakini tungeomba serikali isiachilie mkono wao usaidizi hapa palipofikia, kwa sababu hizi families zimeathirika kisaikolojia, kimaisha na wanahitaji usaidizi wetu.
And as this was happening in the capital city, the Foreign Affairs Ministry was giving an official update of the evacuation situation.
Today morning is when we have evacuated the last batch. And this batch was coming from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, who arrived here via a commercial flight.
Anxiety is mounting for families of relatives who are still holed up in Yemen. And as those who've escaped now start counting their blessings, the challenge remains on how they'll be able to find a fresh footing back home. Francis Ontomwa, KTN, Mombasa.
Let's stay on Yemen. And of course, there has been speculation on why the presidential jet was made to turn back last week, with some pointing, accusing fingers at different countries. But the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has remained categorical that the presidential jet was made to turn back after security concerns were raised over the airspace in Yemen. And this is where the concern starts. Let me give you a brief, basic information about Yemen. There is a war currently going on in Yemen. That war is between government forces and a separatist group known as Houthis. Both these two groups are fighting to control the government in Yemen. Now, at some point, Houthis were gaining ground over the Yemeni government, and they asked the Saudi Arabian government to help them. Saudi Arabia is the neighbor to Yemen. So Saudi Arabia got a 10-country coalition to launch airstrikes to sort of help the Yemeni government regain its control over that particular country. The attacks that have been launched by this 10-country coalition have mainly focused on airstrikes by the coalition forces. If you're a Kenyan and you're aware that your president was made to turn back, this is where the concern begins. Airstrikes by the coalition forces. The presidential jet, this is according to some information that we've received from our sources, is a military jet. It is registered under a military jet. In other words, that means that its code signal is military. This is dangerous for anyone flying in a war zone, because in that airspace, anyone who detects this plane will perceive it to be a military jet. This is a war zone. You do not know who is flying in this particular plane. You do not know what the objective is. It could be an enemy jet coming in to bomb. It could be coming in to spy. You don't know. So Putting in mind that in Yemen, we have government forces, we have the Saudi-led coalition, and of course you have the Houthis. All these people could perceive this jet as an enemy jet. So on air, the Saudi Arabian-led coalition would bring it down. On ground, these people have no idea who this is. So in other words, both on air and on ground, they would bring it down. Which brings the question, so who plans presidential trips? Presidential trips are planned by the military. After they're planned by the ministry, they're run through the NIS. After NIS, they're run through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course, for protocol issues. Probably call that country, tell them our president will be flying over your airspace. So in this case, they would call and say, Diplomat 1 will be using your airspace at this particular time, and he will be using this airspace. My concern is here. About a month ago, KTN covered a story of how the government was trying to evacuate Kenyans from Yemen, and this is what we did back then.
Nationals stuck in the war-torn Yemen may soon be home if evacuation efforts by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs go according to plan. Now, the ministry has said it has arranged to have China and Indian naval vessels transport the Kenyans to Djibouti. The Kenyans, however, need to make their way to specific locations in neighboring Oman and Saudi Arabia to get the much-needed help out of the war-torn country. KTN's Edith Kimani has the details.
If the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has a compass, then it's pointed southwest of Asia, specifically at Yemen. It is from this country on the Arabian Peninsula that the Kenyan government, with the help of the Chinese and Indians, will evacuate an unknown number of Kenyans caught in the ongoing conflict. The ministry's plan is already in motion, according to a statement sent to newsrooms. The Chinese and Indian naval vessels are currently in the region evacuating not only their nationals but also those of friendly countries that have requested them to do so. The statement reads in part, those evacuated are transferred to Djibouti for their governments to arrange transport to their respective home countries.
Okay, people, that was a month ago. Kenyans who wanted to be evacuated from Yemen were told to go to Oman or Saudi Arabia, basically meaning that it was impossible to get them from Yemen. It was too dangerous to get them from there. That was a month ago. And looking at the statement from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the president's trip was supposed to go over Yemen. So even if the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was supposed to coordinate this, it would be very difficult because you have three forces in Yemen. You have the government, you have the Saudi-led coalition, and then you have the Houthis. Who was the Ministry of Foreign Affairs going to talk to enable the president go through their airspace? And that then begs the question, looking at all this background, where Yemen stands as it is, who attempted to fly the head of state over a war zone, and why? That is the question that is on the minds of so many Kenyans now.
A lot of questions, Linda. Who is it? The Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Is it the National Intelligence Service? Is it the military? Did anybody try to fly the president's jet over a war-torn area? And who was responsible for that? A lot of questions.
Yes.
It is a story we shall continue to keep an eye for you. Now, it was a battle between religious beliefs and the law after health officers in Kaptebe village, Uasin Gishu County, sought police intervention to take an ailing 90-year-old woman for treatment. Now, the mother of 8 had earlier resisted attempts to get her treated, maintaining that her faith does not allow her to go to hospital. Mercy can deal with that story from Uasin Gishu County.
Kaptebe village waits in anticipation to see how a two-day persuasive talk will end. Inside the house is Gogo Perpetua Chepkemboi. At 90 years old, she is very sick. 2 health workers are here to convince her to go to the hospital.
Katika hali yangu ya huduma, nimetembea jana katika hii boma, nikakuta Gogo hakuna joto mingi na anashindwa kupumua.
Gogo says her faith will make her well. It always has, since 1951 when she joined the African Church of the Holy Spirit.
Nikuombea. Kama nasikia mgonjwa naita mzee ya kanisa, anakuja ombea, mimi napona. Hata kama mtoto ni mgonjwa, naita mzee ya kanisa, anakuja ombea. Vile buko nasema.
Mimi ikikaa hivi, mimi bado kuonja mambo ya hospitali, hata sindano kwa mwili yangu hakuna. Mimi ilikaa na mama yangu kama mimi mtoto kidogo.
Gogo is clearly in pain, but she says she doesn't want to preach water and drink wine, that she'll hold on to her faith literally. It's been over an hour now with health officers and police officers trying to convince Gogo to at least leave this door and go for a medical checkup, but her children say it's up to Gogo herself and that her faith will make her better. A Bible is brought as one of Gogo's son flips through the pages to get the verse that prohibits any form of medication. But the health workers are not convinced.
Kwa sababu kikohozi inaingia kwa hewa na inasambaa kwa watu wengine. So ninahofia ya kwamba watu ambao wanaishi na gogo wanaambukizana.
Outside, Gogo's children sing. They say they don't want to be part of the talk inside. They fear being cast if they go against their mother's wishes. Their children too have never received any vaccination.
Mimi nilizaa watoto yangu, hata chanjo kwa watoto yangu hakuna. Mimi nilikaa kwa kanisa.
Huyu ni mamangu, babangu ni bishop, anaongoza hii dini. Lakini tangu nisaliwe sijawahi enda usi. Sijawahi tibiwa. Sina chanjo, lakini vile nilikuwa mkubwa ndio nikajua na yasaenda usi.
Na kila mwananchi ana haki ya kupata matibabu.
With the help of the police, Gogo is finally taken out of her bed, but no family member wants to help out, not even accompany her to the hospital. The health officials say they are taking her to the Turbo dispensary for testing. When she gets better, they will bring her back. Masikandie, KTN, Kaptebe Village, Uasin Gishu County.
Let me remind you of our
Get well, Gogo. Get well, Gogo. Hope she gets well very soon.
Indeed, let's now remind you of a big question tonight, and we're asking, were the actions on the officers who failed Kenyans in Garissa adequate?
Indeed, that is the conversation tonight. Keep sending those tweets and SMSs. The number is 22155. The hashtag is hashtag Garissa Goofs. At KTN Kenya, at Linda Ogutu, and at Ben_Kitil. We shall continue to sample them during this live newscast.
Indeed, we're taking a short break. Stay with us. We'll be back. Thank you for staying with us. It's time for yet another installment of the series Daring Abroad by our special correspondent Alex Chamwada.
This time round he reports from Rwanda, where Kenyans have gone into farming big time and some have even bought the land they are farming on.
Now, you may be asking, how can a Kenyan own land in Rwanda, and are there Rwandan nationals owning land in Kenya? He answers that.
Welcome to the country of 1,000 hills. A country with a population of about 12 million, one of the most densely populated African countries. But Rwanda, that is only slightly bigger than Kajiado County in Kenya, is working overtime to overcome the limitations of space and its landlocked nature by tapping into regional trade. Now, you may already be familiar with the big investments by Kenyan firms in the capital, Kigali, from banks to universities like the Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology and Mount Kenya University, and even supermarkets. But here comes the untold story of Kenyans who, at the individual level, have taken the benefits of free movement of people, capital, goods, and services to another level. In these hills and valleys, you find Kenyans busy at work on their farms. I am here to meet one of them, David Mwangi from Kirinyaga County in Kenya. He owns 4 hectares, which is equal to about 12 acres of land in Gaharwa village that is located in the eastern province of Rwanda.
Actually, they call me Munyarwanda, actually.
You blended so easily.
Yeah. To mix is several Kenyan languages. There's many ones in Kikuyu, many ones in Kiruya, Kikamba. Like when water, they call it Amanzi, which should have been close to the Kiruya. The leopard is Ingwe, which is also Luya. Like counting is mostly Kikuyu, Imwe.
They don't fear Kenyans as being imposing, full of themselves.
Actually, they admire our working culture because they say Kenyans work very hard.
I was working with as a researcher in Karama Research Station, and the manager of the station went to buy land one day, and I accompanied him. And I found the process of buying land here to be quite simple. So I asked him, can I also buy land here? He asked me, why not? We have some Indians and other Zungus who have bought land here. You as an East African should be easier. So I started by buying 1 hectare.
But how much did the land cost you?
It was 1,500,000 Rwanda francs, or 1.5 million Rwanda francs. It was equivalent to 200,000 Kenya shillings. Actually, these lakes are part of the Kagera River system. They act as reservoirs for the Kagera. You can see down there, that's where Kagera passes. Beyond there, we have another lake called Ruero. The advantage of being close to the lake is that you can be able to irrigate. Actually, I'm planning to install an irrigation system for this farm.
All land in Rwanda belongs to the government. It is taxable and must be put to use. Leasehold depends on the size of the land. Purchasing land here is first a question of willing buyer, willing seller. Approval is needed from both the seller's family and the local administration. The final stage is the issuance of the title deed by the National Land Center.
In Rwanda, the lands office goes to the people. So the people from the lands office in Bugesera district, the clerks came to the cell. It's like a cell is like a location in our place. So for 1 month they come to there, all the people with land issues were going there. So I just took my documents and they processed them in 1 day. Actually, it was about 2 hours.
Mwangi warns would-be buyers from Kenya that shortcuts and corrupt deals will land you in trouble with authorities. Ironically, the survey, mapping, and even the registry system here was streamlined with the help of Kenyan consultants. Never mind the fact that in Kenya, the lands registry is still a big mess.
Never seen beans grow in Kenya the way they do here, especially in this area called Kaharo.
Actually, beans is staple food here.
Actually, beans is staple food in Rwanda, and they grow so much of it.
So far, I've harvested about 25 bags of beans.
Farming in Rwanda?
So yeah, horticultural farming is picking up here. When we came here, they were just doing maize and beans and cassava. But now they are doing a lot of horticultural farming. You can see these are chilies. These are biringanyas. One sort of our coming is that we have created a lot of employment here. Also, we have introduced irrigation technology. And many of our neighboring farmers are also adopting irrigation technology. You can see from this farmer, this one of our neighbors. He has grown a lot of tomatoes. There's a place where I put a row of beans to see whether they could do well, so that next time I can intercrop.
And you're doing
I can intercrop maize and beans, just to increase the amount of income you get from 1 hectare.
Mwangi says the people of Rwanda have no problem with Kenyans since they appreciate the contribution made by Kenyan nationals in rebuilding their country following the negative consequences of the 1994 genocide that left the country's economy in tatters.
Actually, they like people who are creating employment. The key thing here is to create employment for the people.
Others say as long as everything is above board, combined with good governance that leads to adequate service provision, there is no reason to harbor negative feelings about foreigners.
Unafika hata ku village, muna chief pale wa village anakumalizia shida yako. Hata na raia mnakaa pamoja kwa village, mnaongea tatizo yenu na mnatatua pale pale.
Kenya's High Commissioner to Kigali, John Mwangemi, says all is well in the spirit of one region.
Rwandan government run a very transparent and open system whereby it encourages people to come and invest in the country. So whether you're a foreigner, you're allowed in Rwanda to own 100% of the business. You can own land by yourselves. So that is not a problem. It is part of their strategic vision to be able to improve, to bring investments in the country. I know so many Kenyans who have settled in Rwanda, built their houses and they live peacefully, whether in Kigali or in the villages.
In Kenya too, you'll find investors from Rwanda. For example, this hotel in Mutwapa in Kilifi County is owned by a Rwandan citizen, and he explains how he acquired the land on which the facility sits.
Buying land here, I think it's quite easy. It's a willing seller, willing buyer. And once you have bought the land, of course, you get a title deed. You don't need to be associated with anybody else, which I think is quite easy for developers in this country.
The only difference is that in Kenya, most foreigners own property in urban areas as compared to rural areas.
The process of you getting land in a country can be that you've bought it from an individual, or two, you've been allocated land for a particular purpose by the government or by a county authority. The counties can also set aside land for a particular purpose, like you saw what was going to happen in Machakos when the governor was trying to set aside land for investors. But this one, the only thing we are saying is that such a kind of ownership can only be on a leasehold basis.
Back to Mwangi, the Kenyan who owns 12 acres of land in Rwanda, and we asked him if Rwanda is now his home for good.
Yeah, somehow, because you know, when you have a lot of properties there, you cannot just live like that. So I intend to have to stay here in Rwanda, then I've been going to Kenya occasionally, then come back here. My children have also been coming here.
Mwangi now is among the locals feeding the nation, as statistics indicate that 90% of Rwanda's population is engaged in subsistence agriculture.
These are watermelons we are growing here.
And that's daring abroad. For KTN, I'm Alex Chamwada.
Good evening and welcome to KTN Business. April inflation has risen to a 7-month high, hitting 7.08% compared to 6.31% in March. The steady rise in inflation during the first 4 months comes as commodity prices continue to rise. And as Adelaide Chungole reports, the rise brings sharp focus on the Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee that meets next month, and whether action will be taken to ease inflation and prop up a weakening shilling is one that we are looking forward to.
Over the last 1 week, images such as this have played out on our TV sets as heavy rainfall caused havoc in many parts of the country. The effects were an ironic state of affairs given the fact that Kenyans pray for, plan for and spend a lot of time anticipating this rain. You see, Kenya's agricultural sector is heavily dependent on rainfall, and any shortage in this rainfall quickly translates into an increase in food prices. The recent downpours notwithstanding, the country has yet to receive its fair share of the short rains. As a result, the country's inflation rate, which measures how many shillings Kenyans have to spend to buy a number of goods, has gone up for the last 4 months. And according to the latest figures, the inflation rate has jumped from a 2.5-year low of 5.53% in January to hit a 7-month high of 7.08%.
Obviously, look at the weekly costs of buying vegetables in town, and they're expensive. And because they're expensive, the CPI is going to go up.
Inflation has risen 1.82% since March, driven by a 3.09% jump in the food and non-alcoholic beverages index, followed by a 0.57% jump in the restaurant and hotel index. However, despite the increases in diesel and kerosene prices, the transport index remained unchanged during the month.
It will be not going to surprise anyone, you know. It would be a perfectly expectable number. That's not saying that that's what the number's going to be, but it wouldn't surprise me if I saw the number there.
The rising inflation and a weakening shilling now turns the focus on the Monetary Policy Committee, scheduled to meet on the 6th of May. The MPC has left the central bank rate unchanged for 24 months at 8.5%. But with both the inflation and the shilling under pressure, the bank might be forced to intervene.
So when we talk of a stable exchange rate, we don't mean a flat exchange rate. We mean a predictable exchange rate, something that you as an investor can invest with security.
However, the government is optimistic that the upward trend will reverse by the end of the year as the effects of lower fuel prices and cheaper electricity are transmitted into the economy. Adelaide Changole, KTN Business.
Thanks, Adelaide. Now, still keeping it with the banking sector, banks are moving fast in to tap into the insurance sector, which has over the years remained under-tapped. Barclays Bank is the latest to join the bandwagon, unveiling its life assurance business earlier today. Abby Agina with the details.
Kenya's insurance market remains largely underserved, with the industry recording a mere 3.5% penetration. This has created a buzz in the market, with new players looking to jump in to grow the industry. Barclays Bank Kenya has unveiled its life assurance unit that seeks to offer life insurance policies to customers.
It's a competitive marketplace, we accept that. But like I said, the pie is also growing, so we can be able to compete. But I actually think in this game, it's actually better we try to educate the public to actually grow this part of the business.
Kenyan banks have in the past 3 years actively diversified their businesses to grow revenue by taking up different business model like bank assurance. Through its branch network, Barclays will initially be targeting its 1.5 million policies to life policies.
We'll be selling a FinRoll product. Of course, Kenyans don't like hearing about FinRolls, but yes, we will be selling a FinRoll product.
The drive by Barclays Bank to venture into the insurance business comes hot on the heels of other banks taking this route. So far, KCB Group and Equity Bank are providing bank assurance. Whilst the insurance market in Kenya is valued at about 130 billion shillings, penetration still remains quite low. Insurance penetration presently stands at 3.5% compared to South Africa's 15%.
In 2013, we had a growth of 20% in the insurance industry. If you look again at the statistics, the largest growing, the single segment that is growing fastest, of course, is medical insurance.
Analysts reckon that active participation of lenders like Barclays, KCB and Equity Bank will help penetrate the market mostly held by their extensive branch networks. The rise in earnings shows the potential banks have in the growing insurance business, which is helping millions of Kenyans mitigate against risks. Abi Agina, KTN Business.
And on to infrastructure, China Road and Bridge Corporation is reporting major milestone in the construction of the 472-kilometer standard gauge railway. The company, which doubled its equipment capacity and manpower, is confident of beating its first June 2017 deadline set by the government. The firm has already cleared 385 kilometers of the railway corridor and constructed 101 kilometers of the subgrade, with a further 350 kilometers stretch under construction. The company is also producing 1.5 beams and 1,000 slippers per day, with almost 50% of the 76 bridges under construction. Speaking during a media tour of the construction sites, Kenya Railways Managing Director Atanas Minor projected that 60% of the subgrade will be finished by end of the year, with track layering set to begin early next year. The standard gauge railway is expected to position Kenya as the transport and logistical hub for the East African region.
Currently, the railway is only doing 6% of the cargo from the port of Mombasa. We are looking at doing the upwards of 35 to 50%. That will be a significant monumental change. It will have an impact in the cost of transport, the cost of production, the cost of doing business. It will have a positive impact on our GDP. It will have a positive impact. Currently, we're talking about direct benefits, employment, suppliers to the contractor, And the whole corridor now, you can't even find the area. The whole corridor is busy.
And we'll now take a look at how the money market did fare today.
And in another board wrangle, cracks among the 14 Athletics Kenya rebel chairman has widened soon after Athletics Kenya annual general meeting, whose resolutions were not made public. The regional chairman, who have all along campaigned to kick out long-serving chair Isaiah Kiplagat, could not muster the courage to address the media on the outcome of the meeting. And as Moses Wahisi now tells us, a divided group of 14 regional chairmen termed the meeting as dictatorial, hence not acknowledging some of its resolutions.
After close to 7 hours of closed-door deliberation during the Athletics Kenya annual general meeting, outgoing and long-serving Athletics Kenya boss Isaiah Kiplagat walked out at the end of it the happiest. Though the media was not briefed on the resolutions of the meeting, whose agenda among others was the association finances, Kiplagat reported that everything went as planned. But while Kiplagat briefed the media on the AGM's discussion, the 14 regional chairmen who had been pointing accusing fingers on the national chairman had divergent views about the AGM. At first, they could not agree on who to issue the statement, with the senior national vice chairman Paul Mutui, who had been the spokesman of the opposing to Kiplagat's leadership, failed to address the media, as did Nairobi County Chairman Barnabas Korir. Nonetheless, they addressed their dissatisfaction.
Thank you. The reason we are calling you is just to register our disappointment of how that AGM was conducted. And this is not the first time that we have had such an AGM being conducted in a harsh manner, or in a, what we call a dictatorial way of handling things.
The regional chairman dismissed Isaiah Kiplagat's decision to appoint Jack Tuwei, the AK vice president, as acting president of the federation, and nullified all the other appointments.
It will be illegal for anybody to take an office that we did not elect.
It turned out that Paul Mutui, who was elevated from vice president in charge of technical to senior deputy vice president, had accepted the post which a part of the group he leads was opposed to.
So, no word for us?
No, not today.
Even a single word?
I will give you a very good press statement.
But Mutui walked out of the regional chairman's press briefing and refused to comment on the same. And with that, one might ask, how serious are the regional chairmen in propagating their agenda?
Members that were appointed by the executive committee to act in different positions until end of August. Of course, once I come back after the IF elections, and I made it very clear, whether I succeed as the vice president, I know I'll succeed as a council member. I will not be coming to occupy the position of the president.
Isaiah Kiplagat proceeded on the 3-month sabbatical to focus on campaigning for the IAAF vice presidency, and if he fails to capture that seat, he insists he will not come back as the AK president. Something that many wonder if he really means it this time round. Drama is expected to continue unfolding at the bedeviled Athletics Kenya here in the country. But even with Isaiah Kiplagat stepping aside, it is not certain that the current crop of leaders who are taking charge are going to have a merry time in their office. Moses Wahisi, KTN Sports.
Let's focus on a big question before we go. Were the actions on the officers who failed Kenyans in the Garissa attack adequate? That was our big question tonight.
A lot of no's. Ahmed Mohammed on Twitter says no. For the relatives to get some closure, justice must be done and officers must be held accountable.
Ben Muroki says no, action was not adequate, but at least for once we have a CS who's honest to admit it.
And Samatar on Twitter says all those who slept on the job should face the full force of the law.
Oyego Onyino says no, there is no and there will never be enough punishment for a life loss.
Thank you for those comments and for joining us on KTN Prime. That is where we leave it tonight. My name is Ben Kitili. Don't go too far. Jeff Konange Live begins shortly, and Jeff will be talking to British High Commissioner to Kenya, Christian Turner.
Thank you for watching. Have a good night. Remember, tomorrow you have Betty Kello with Friday Briefing.